Welcome everybody to Flat Earth Nation. Now, Mudflood was Armageddon because it is a Flat Earth Nation. Mudflood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. I don't think I'm using the right camera here, but I know I've got the right microphone going. I've got a lot to go over, so I was going to forego going live tonight just so that I could stay focused. And I'll probably try to jump in the chat. We'll see what the Lord does, but I've got so many tabs, I've got to get a lot off my mind. Starting with this one website, Mummy Portraits. Disturbingly realistic wooden paintings depict the ancient faces of Egypt from 1,000 years ago, 1,310 years ago, more than likely. But remember, this is not Egypt. They found these over in what they call Egypt. The United States is really Egypt. And I find these rather disturbingly realistic. Egyptians. These Fayum portraits painted with tempera and wax on wooden boards were attached to the mummies. You take off that lid of the sarcophagus and say, hey, I know what they look like. They look like this. Hey, that looks like my daughter. Mummy wrapping. Flinders Petrie. Okay, now I don't believe it. This guy here, that's a name. Flinders Petrie. Allegedly, he did everything in the world. He found everything in the world. He's the guy that, there's always that guy that in every language, I wrote every book, or I'm the architect of every building in this city, or the whole state, some of them. Well, this Flinders Petrie, he found everything that's important here. Giza, Egypt, Tanis, Nile. There's the Finium burials, so he probably faked those masks. Notice the way I'm still acting like it's live? Except now I know I'm sharing and everything like that. Hey, you got stuff in Egypt. There's the Petrie medal. Uh-oh. Petrie remains controversial for his anti-democratic and pro-hello eugenics. That means kill the black people. Hooray for the white people. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, we don't test as good as the Japanese, the Indians, the Chinese, a bunch of other people. So do we really want to go down that road where, yay, America, let's base it all on eugenics and test scores? So anyway, Petrie, the man who did everything, had pro-eugenic views, was a dedicated believer in the superiority of the white peoples over the semi-white people like Italians, Croatians, and blacks. These views spilled over into his academic opinions, believing that society is the product of racial biology. Racial biology. I just got thrown off for a second there because I saw mulatto. The old one-drop rule was in effect in the United States for quite a while. So he's the man. He's the guy. There he is. Famous all his life. Hey, there's his wife Hildra. Look at there, man. He's still thinking right there. Yeah, Italians thought they were white, and so did the Irish, but ha ha ha. He proved it. He's a goofball, man. They're all goofballs. all the people that they put up in charge are goofballs. He was the first to use seriation in Egyptology. Probably don't use that anymore. Probably stinks. They look like this. We saw these already. They look like those pictures of the big eye people, right? Big eyes. Anyway, I was looking at this other page and I saw that one article. Jeremiah's prayer for understanding. We'll get right back to that. I just found out that Tommy from Texas is back. His
I guess I am.
his ban is off of YouTube.
The channel was back on yet or not. But yeah, thank you. I hear Alan out there. I think he's listening.
Yep, I was doing a video too.
And there's Ruger. Yeah, man. Pain-free. Relatively pain-free. The incisions hurt. They hurt pretty bad. And I'm pretty skinny. I don't have much meat back here on my hip. So sitting certain ways hurts my butt. But other than that, pretty bueno. Pretty bueno. Feeling good. Didn't post-op. I took a total of 7 hydrocodones and probably 4 Tramadol for pain. I took no antibiotics. I only use frequency. And for my pain control, mostly use frequency in my prescription from the state of Texas, from my gummies. And it worked well. And I'm needing less of this every day. I highly recommend these products for pain control over.
How about that? No antibiotics. That's the big deal. And he had to have a set of wires, one on each side of his spine, put in for a week, taken out, wait another week, and then have 2 more wires run up that they are, supposed to be permanent, and then embedded another, it's like a pacemaker thing where there's an electric source that runs his pain relief. And no antibiotics. And how many teenagers do you know that are on their 3rd round of antibiotics because that last belly ring just won't heal, or nose ring, fill in the blank?
Anything natural is better, right? We all believe that, right? I guess natural would be better. You could get it. Alan's been doing some crazy shows. I just to do a quick thing here. Probably tomorrow morning, Alan, if you see this, probably tomorrow morning about 6:30, 11, somewhere around there. I may get on to a live one. Just hadn't been on in a while. Got lots to talk about. Lots happened. A lot yet to come. Going forward. Thank you for all your prayers, all your vibrations, good vibrations. They were felt and they were utilized. The healing process has gone very well, very well. No sign whatsoever. That's one of the biggest things with these kind of procedures is getting infection, because you have that they're putting that little generator in a pocket, under your fat and your muscle, and your body doesn't like it. So if you're compromised much, you can pretty easily get an infection in these procedures. I used prayer, frequency. That's all I used. That's all I used. And healthy as a horse. Went and had to go see. These people are crazy. This is crazy. I was getting short on my Lamictal I take for seizures. And I've just seen this guy, neurologist here in Beaumont twice. First initial one to establish a patient-doctor relationship, get a prescription filled, get started, and then the next time for a couple of tests. And that was it. I needed my prescription refilled. Well, my insurance, after you get 3 prescriptions filled to a doctor, they want you to start doing 90-day mail order through their pharmacy. And I don't like doing 90-day mail order. Just don't. Never have. And so I had to call and opt out of it. And so I will get my prescription today. They gave me 3. Kathy went up there Friday. I called Friday going, look, I'm out. And they said, well, we'll call it in, okay? And they called it in. And of course, the pharmacy says they won't fill it. You know, they'll fill it, but it's going to cost like $180 a bottle, you know, for the bottle. And we usually get them for $8. So we're like, well, okay. And the pharmacist said, here, I'll give you 3, getting through the weekend. And so I had to go do that today. This is 10 minutes in the room for an hour's drive. And that's just the way it goes. I had to get my money first before they re-up my prescription. I was due to go see him like the 23rd of this month. And since I needed my prescription refilled, they were like, well, you got to come in first. Come on, man. Just call it in, please. I don't want to have a seizure. I just had surgery. That'd be terrible. Just be terrible. But all's well here on the home front. I know Alan's been putting out tons and tons of content. And we've been talking about a lot of it. There's a lot of it that I want to hit on that I've observed since I've been offline. But everybody be good.
Yeah.
Bless y'all. Good vibrations, good discernment.
And honestly, he is actually, he's a big part of every show I do. So that was cool. All right, that was excellent to hear from Tommy. We've got some bad news. We've just got to cover all these tabs I've got pulled up. Jeremiah 32, we're going to start at verse 29. You can read along with me in the English Standard Version. The Chaldeans who are fighting against this city shall come and set this city on fire and burn it. We're going to find out why. With the houses on whose roofs offerings have been made to Baal and drink offerings poured out to other gods, to provoke me to anger. For the children of Israel and the children of Judah have done nothing but evil in my sight from their youth. The children of Israel have done nothing but provoke me to anger by the work of their hands, declares the Lord. The city has aroused my anger and wrath from the day it was built to this day, so that I will remove it from my sight because of all the evil of the children of Israel and the children of Judah that they did to provoke me to anger, their kings and their officials, their priests and their prophets, the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They have turned to me their back and not their face. And though I have taught them persistently, they have not listened to receive instruction. They have set up their abominations in the house that is called by my name. They have set up their abominations in the house that is called by my name to defile it. They built the high places of all in the valley of the son of Hinnom to offer up their sons and daughters to Moloch. And I think that could be considered a form, you're millstoning. You're raising up your kids to be like you, and how'd that work out? And now that you know what you do, you had better intervene. They built the high places of Baal in the valley of the son of Hinnom to offer up their sons and daughters to Moloch, though I did not command them, nor did it enter into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. And don't think that in any way that interferes with the omniscience of God, because, oh, how could it say God? It didn't enter into his mind. He's using that as an object lesson of what he's letting these false gods run their principalities and their spiritual worlds, and they've gone bad. Guess what? It never entered my mind to rape my daughters. But it did to some people, because, people have told me my parents raped me. So those things happen. It didn't enter my mind, but it's not that I, you know what I mean. Something we'll be getting into today and a little later is epigenetics. And maybe there is something to, people, inheritance. Not only are you what you eat, your children might be what you're eating now. It's time for us to start paying attention. And what is that, the sins of the fathers?
Chemical acetophenone with a painful electric shock, lab rats quickly learned to fear it. Along the way, extra neurons sprouted in their noses and in the smell processing center of their brains, making them super sensitive to the scent. This result isn't shocking. What is surprising is that the rats' pups and their pups' pups were also startled by the smell of acetophenone and had the same extra neurons as their fathers, despite never having been introduced to either their dads or the fruity scent before. But how could the pups have inherited something that their fathers learned? Basic genetics tells us that only DNA gets passed along to offspring. Characteristics like memories, scars, or giant muscles can't get passed on, since acquiring them doesn't alter the genetic code. But it turns out that instilling fear in the rats did trigger genetic changes, not in the DNA sequence itself, but instead in how that code was read and used in the rats' bodies. In every cell, biological machinery constantly translates DNA into the proteins needed to carry out vital processes.
Okay, so we're going to get into some of that, that's the biological processes and stuff. I think we have more epigenetic things coming up, but you get the idea. Oh, there's more right now. I get it.
Largely stable within an individual, the epigenome can be dynamically altered by environmental conditions. The epigenome doesn't change the DNA, but it does decide how much and which genes are expressed in different cells of the body, which has major effects on every aspect of our being. Gene expression is due to lifestyle. Our body contains an estimated 37 trillion cells which contain DNA, but they do not do anything with the DNA without instructions. Our genes get these instructions from the epigenome. Virtually any step of gene expression can be modified. Certain lifestyle choices can cause genes to be silenced or expressed over time. In other words, genes can be turned off, become dormant, or turned on, become active. Our lifestyle choices affect our genetic expression. But not only that, epigenetic tags on the DNA can be passed down to our offspring. According to a study published this week, phthalates found in shaving cream and other hygiene products and food packaging and other plastics affect sperm concentration and movement and increase sperm DNA damage and even death, thereby lowering reproductive success. In this study, Researchers linked high levels of phthalates in male urine samples with epigenetic changes in the DNA of the subject's sperm, proving that the father's environmental health contributes to reproductive success. Phthalates are estimated to be detectable in nearly 100% of the US population. Semen samples from men with higher urinary concentrations of phthalate metabolites were associated with epigenetic marks on 131 regions of sperm DNA. The researchers found many of these regions affected the function of genes related to growth, development, and basic cellular function. Sperm matures in a 72-day process. The preconception time period may represent an important developmental window by which environmental exposures may influence sperm epigenetics and in turn influence early life development. So in the same way, mothers need to be extra careful during the preconception period, so do fathers. Although the
Wow, boy, this is an epigenetic, eugenic. We got all kinds of things. I got to close out these tabs so I can clear my mind and overload you with information. All right, just a little bit more on the transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. It is the transmission of epigenetic markers from one parent to his from one organism to the next, from parent to child, that affects the traits of offspring without altering the primary structure of the DNA. That's why they missed it for so long. Epigenetic markers, epigenetic tags. Well, you haven't talked about it since the Akram. But, we can't forget it. We're going to look at Lamarckism and see that this is, it's nothing new, but bear with me. I'm going to scroll real slowly here just to, show you how long of a Dutch famine, studying it then, phenotypes. A lot of study came out of that eugenics studies of the 20s and 30s from around the domed enclosed earth. Fetal programming, a long article. It's too much to, even try to get into, especially with the salt domes and everything else I want to cover. Controversies, always going to be controversies in the history of evolutionary thought. That's why there's been several positions, because it will adjust, right, to anything, any proof you put in their face, they won't care. It looks like 1809, the usual suspects started thinking, maybe there is no God. Baptiste Lamarck, we're going to look at him. Don't be reading ahead. Of course, Francis Crick has been working on this DNA all my life. I think he might still be alive, or if not, recently passed. Furthermore, patterns in epigenetic inheritance and the evolutionary implications, because they never saw it, implications of the epigenetic codes in living organisms are connected to both Lamarck and Darwin's theories of evolution. For example, Lamarck postulated that environmental factors were responsible for modifying phenotypes hereditarily, which supports the constructs that exposure to environmental factors during critical stages of development can result in epimutations in germlines. In Germany, epimutations in Germany, is that what they meant? Thus augmenting phenotypic variance. New sentence. In contrast, Darwin's theory claimed that natural selection strengthened a population's ability to survive and remain reproductively fit. Is it going to be the finch? It is. By favoring populations that are readily adapt, survival of the fittest, the most adaptable. Looks like I looked up Lamarckism. I didn't just want to click on it. Oh, maybe we'll study Lamarckism, we won't, but we're definitely going to be studying sulfur. Any type of sulfate lies, any type of good salt, bad salt, salt domes. The earth is waxing old like a garment, waxing away. And salt domes and oil extraction are like the hatching moth of all of its baby moths coming out everywhere and eating the cloth in its final. We got 25 years. It's sulfur. I'm just looking up this bisulfite, because it's in everything, and it's always to do with oil and sulfur, salt domes, and mud flood tautomerization. You know, why do they do this to me? You know, everything's got to be hard. Methylcytosine. You know, polymerase chain reaction. Huh? That wasn't invented till 1983, and now it's a method widely used to rapidly make millions to billions of copies of specific DNA, allowing scientists to take a very small sample of DNA and amplify it to a large enough amount to study in detail. 1983. Hey, thank you. Bisulfate. Looking at sulfur. Oh my goodness. Is that really? That was the that was the clown outfit of John Wayne Gacy, and just that clown stuff. Weird. Hey, have you ever heard of the 100 Regiment? You ever wondered what happened up in Ottawa? Its early settlers. How come part of it speaks French? The others probably got their land the same way. See, they sent over the 100th Regiment. It was a bunch of ruffians led by a Lieutenant Colonel John By, a British Army engineer. The settlement was built to house Army engineers and workers for the construction of Canal Mania. It was time to dig out the canals like they were doing in England. The Erie Canal was just getting finished up, and the canal was designed to facilitate the movement of soldiers and supplies, because we were going to have a war with the United States probably. But there never was a war there. Never fired a shot. However, his crew were not the first British soldiers to occupy the region. A decade before canal construction began, Britain concluded war with Napoleonic France at Waterloo in 1812. Big times in reset world, right? The dawn of peace left Britain with a large army and no one to fight. Many soldiers were discharged and given the choice to either receive retirement, pension, or a plot of land and start a new life. Many of them took the land grant, and there was a pretty big brigade of soldiers there. And, well, let's see what they got. Land was distributed to the soldiers through a land petition. A private would receive 100 acres, a sergeant 200, lieutenant 400, captain 800, a colonel 1,000. I would imagine a general 10,000. What did Lafayette get? Families who took the pension, families who took land were also given a pension. 12 months of food, shovel, axe, hoe, scythe, knife, hammer, kettle, bed, tick and blanket, handsaw, 12 panes of glass, 1 pound of putty for glazing the windows, and 12 pounds of nails. Get it done. And for each kit town of where they would build, they were given 2 sets of carpenter tools that they would share. Allowed to keep their guns, and basically said, now let's see if they're so tough up there in Ottawa. We've got this British Army right here. So they were Ottawa's first settlers. The first settlers were military people who got free land recently. That's all I'm saying. That's the only reason I had this pulled up, because I wanted to say that. Canada, you're a bunch of mercenaries, always acting so, wearing those nice clothes. Your J. Crew catalogs could only hide your evil intent. For so long, you are the United States evil twin brother. I just wanted to show you this Florida State Road number 1. Now, when Tommy from Texas was talking about, we went to Beaumont, I just wanted to ride along with him. We were on US 90 because it was rolling with 10, but it was the Florida State Road number 1, also known as the Yellow Brick Road, just known as the Old Brick Road or the Red Brick Road. And I guess there was but here it is. Look at it. That is the road. It's like a Roman road. It's still there from the early 1800s and looking good. Man, I would ride a Segway on that. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Gonna fly now. Looks like it had a little asphalt topping to make it super smooth at one time. So this is about Route 90. I study the old roads. Despite the 0, it does not go coast to coast. But they keep it. I got here because I was studying salt domes and sulfur and the French and the British, chambers of commerce and everything else that this thing runs through in Hurricane and Louisiana, New Orleans. Well, you'll see. It's not like I'm going to change the order of the tabs. I'm trying. Look at me. I just closed another one. There is another historic. That's it opened. The Old Brick Road is only from 1921. What? No. It's got to be older. Well, that's probably when they named it from the Native Americans. The Sunshine State. There's the bricks of it. Look at this frash process to extract sulfur from underground deposits. We're getting into it now. Now it's getting heavy. Superheated water is needed. That's hotter than boiler. That's pressure cooking boiling hot. You see, we're talking about from 212 up to 705. When I might have a video pulled up, and they'll go up into 374 degrees. Well, they're talking, because they don't want you to know they were doing this. The only way to get sulfur was through this process. Most of the world's sulfur was obtained this way until the late 1900s, last century, when sulfur covered from petroleum and gas sources became more commonplace. The 1900s don't seem like that long ago to me. But this has been going on since the 1800s. In 1894, a German-born American chemist devised this method of sulfur removal using pipes to bypass the quicksand. This replaced the inefficient and polluting Sicilian method because people had to get sulfur. I honestly did not see the Sicilian method. I have to add that one to it. But nevertheless, keep in the back of your informationally overloaded mind that sulfur has become more readily available since the start of oil extraction. And it looks like salt domes started popping up when we started extracting oil. Keep that in mind. Let's go look at the Sicilian method, one of the first ways to extract sulfur from underground deposits. Now, sulfur has a 4,000-year history. How come we're only learning about these inefficient ways that constantly need improving? That looks labor intensive. I mean, sulfur must be pretty darn important. You know, there's a lake of fire and lake of sulfur. Fire and sulfur. Isn't sulfur bad? It can be good, but it can be, you know, you just don't want a lake of it. I know that. That's always bad. In my world, that's always bad. Wow, you gotta burn it. You burn it and then get the sulfur out of the rocks through that incline method there. Somehow you heat it up, distill it. You got to clean that sulfur up after you get it out of that other trough. Then you distill it some more in a very labor intensive thing. It's for alchemy. They like it alchemy. It's known as brimstone. Sulfur is brimstone, the stone that burns. Has a variety of purpose, such as a bleaching agent, incense for religious rites, glyphosates, the thing that's, you know, the biggest epigenic travesty that you're placing upon your offspring if you have anything to do with Roundup or pesticides and things like that instead of avoiding them. Romans used it to make fireworks and weapons. I believe it has something to do with saltpeter. Middle of the 1800s, Sicily produced 3/4 of the world. Well, that's going away by 1812. The United States overtook it because Texas developed oil. We found oil, and next thing you know, nobody beats Texas in poking holes in the ground. And I think that's what's causing these big landslides and things like that. Stones are superheated with that pressurized 725 degree water to separate the sulfur from its rock, its matrix. So it was, to me, it's a body part. It was in a Nephilim part because it's not petrified trees. And I still haven't had anybody want to come on and debate me about how something that if a tree dies and it has time for everything to leach out and then be replaced with gemstone silicates, why it doesn't rot when it's dead. And well, it was an oxygen depleted thing. Well, then nothing's going to be leaching out. Otherwise, they'd be like poking a hole in that vacuum thing that we don't like about NASA and space. So there are no trees in the mining. It's all dust of the Nephilim. At least we can agree some of it's dust of the Nephilim until the Lord takes the blinders completely off your eye. Sulfur has a melting point of Fahrenheit 239 degrees, so slightly above boiling, which is why you need to use the superheated water. We'll get into it. We are going to get into it.
Of their own preconceived assumptions about intelligence. What started as a way to identify those who needed academic help quickly became used to sort people in other ways, often in service of deeply flawed ideologies. One of the first large-scale implementations occurred in the United States during World War I, when the military used an IQ test to sort recruits and screen them for officer training. At that time, many people believed in eugenics, the idea that desirable and undesirable genetic traits could and should be controlled in humans through selective breeding. There were many problems with this line of thinking, among them the idea that intelligence was not only fixed and inherited, but also linked to a person's race. Under the influence of eugenics, scientists used the results of the military initiative to make a
you guys, I know you guys are sick of eugenics and stuff. What's diaprism? Oh man. Salt. Oh, I'm studying salt. Salt structures in nature. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Understanding salt tectonics. Salt to include all rock bodies composed primarily of halite. Salt is mechanically weak and flows like a fluid even at geologically rapid strain rates. Salt is also relatively incompressible, so is less dense than most carbonates, and all moderately to fully compacted siliciclastic rocks. Salt's fluid rheology and incompressibility make it inherently unstable under a wide range of geologic conditions. Primarily, driving force for salt tectonics is removing oil from the ground, somehow causing a living organism, the earth, to react. And now that one mote in the eye is infected with sin, and it's going to take a gangrening type of function to purge it all. I gotta get my thoughts together here. This one caught me by surprise. I thought it would be more about salt. Salt tectonics evaporates containing rock salt load-bearing salt. Here we got reactive salt structures, passive salt, shortening. Where is that, here's that word overburden. I think that's mud flood. I don't think there's much, salt's on the move, everybody. What's a mud volcano? Here's a group of mud volcanoes. They're popping up all over the world. You heard about them. I did a show on them about 3 years ago. Mud volcanoes. Hydrate-bearing sediments. These are from 1996. Since the oil is being produced, man, the world is in revolution. And I don't care, if it's not climate change, it's God's judgment. Cheaper than going to Hawaii to see a regular volcano. Some mud volcanoes in Pakistan. They're getting ready to go. Mud glacier in Pakistan. Taiwan. That's a baby mud in California. They're in Canada. They're coming for you. Oh, it's all fun now in Trinidad, yeah. Look, the Earth's dying. It's hilarious. Ha ha ha. I wanted to look at this. This is just crazy, right? Looks like an old kit house didn't get cleaned up. Same, you know. It actually could get cleaned up if they could just spend a little time on it. This is a big fort. Look at that rock there. Look at, there it is. This is a big one. Golconda. Just a little mud flood intrusion here. There's the ruins of the fort. This is the, looks like it's just got grass growing on it. How long is it, you know? How long could it survive with things in the wild growing like that? Maybe a couple 100 years at the most. How long could it, how many trees could grow out of Angkor Wat? Oh, just that one group. Because it's just happened, people. All the big diamonds in the world were found in that area where that fort is. Golconda. Now, design inside the Golconda. Why is this blacked out? Somebody, I think that black dot is put over it. Can't be sure though, but it doesn't look like a circle to me. The Golconda, located in Telangana, Italy, has a wide variety of the diamonds, the most famous in the world. Only recently a World Heritage Site. Surprisingly, because it's such a large fort. It was a mud fort. Built, it says, over a period of 62 years in 538 or 1538, you pick. Recently, you know, fell into ruin recently, according to the, you know, the history of time. The canal builders, this seemed interesting to me. Golden age of canal building. Epigenetics again. Study of heritable phenotypes. Heritable. Heredity. Down on that cellular DNA level. And really, the term has only been around since the 1990s. Man, I was like in my 30s. I was young. But and this canalization, when did they do these canals and then figure out these other things? Everything's so recent. And it wasn't until recent, it's like you are what you eat and so are your children. And so maybe that explains between you and your parents. The way you can honor them is by fighting what is in you and taking charge of your life in a way like you never thought you would focus on something as being that important. What is the Cold Springs Harbor Laboratory? You know, that's the thing. These undergraduate research department programs for gifted students, and then you find out they don't even have to pay. They just, it's free. But if people want to come for their weekend courses, look at that. Every year it was held since 1933, except World War II, for genetics, genomics, neuroscience, and plant biology, of course. You want to go to, $1,000 per attendee. All right, looking around at the history, the institution took root as the biological laboratory in 1890. Between 1910 and 1939, that's a long time, the laboratory was the base of the Eugenics Records Office. Who's fit to breed, keep track of them. So there is that. Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. In 1941, the director, Demerick, shifted the laboratory's research focus to the genetics of microbes, the biochemical function of the gene. During World War II, efforts there is where penicillin became, molecular genetics. That's where their heroes are from, the Cold Spring Harbor. They were seeking to discover the nature of genes through the study of viruses called bacteriophage that infect bacteria. I've done shows on bacteria. Unfortunately, YouTube took them. But, if there was any help, we could get them back. I guess other people got their videos back, but, I can't do it myself. But, in the meantime, we roll on. The next person was a James D. Watson, served as the laboratory's director there at Cold Spring Harbor Lab for 35 more years. Upon taking charge in 1968, he focused on cancer research, creating a tumor virus group. A tumor virus group. Well, it's not the entire Cold Spring Harbor Labs that is free. It's the Watson School of Biological Sciences that was established in 1998. They had to get this rushed to the head of the board. They award the PhD degree there and fully fund the research program of every student. Students are challenged to obtain their doctoral degrees in 4 to 5 years. How about that? You think they're going to get what they want when they pay for it? I do. All right, looks like we're back at the Bible here in Jeremiah chapter 31, because I just can't. We have to keep everything, in perspective of what we're learning. And right now we're learning that in Jeremiah 31 verse 27, we are told, warned, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of man and the seed of beast. And it shall come to pass that as I have watched over them to pluck up and break down, to overthrow, destroy, and bring harm, so I will watch over them to build up and to plant, declares the Lord. I have another Jeremiah passage pulled up here. Basically, it's just saying, you know, that is a confusing passage to a lot of people. Oh, wait, they're not talking about that past verse. They're talking about this verse. Jeremiah 31:32. I think I meant 22. How long will you wander, O faithless daughter? For the Lord has created a new thing in the land. A woman will shelter a man. A woman encircles a man. And encompass a man is probably a good one. So that's, you know, I think we'll get to it. Wanted to look at piezoelectricity quickly. Accumulates certain solid materials. Electric charge accumulates in certain solid materials such as crystals, certain ceramics, and biological matter such as bone, DNA, and various proteins in response to applied mechanical stress. And I am telling you that piezoelectricity is one of the craziest things I've ever underestimated and not studied enough, because they really didn't know about it that long, and now we couldn't run the world without it. What is it? The first demonstration of the direct piezoelectric effect was in 1880 by the brothers Pierre Curie and Jacques Curie. You probably know their sister Marie Curie. They combined their knowledge of pyroelectricity with their understanding of the underlying crystal structures that gave rise to pyroelectricity to predict crystal behavior. Why didn't it have a blue link, right? Thermoelectricity. (1717), who noted that the stone attracted only hot ashes, not cold ones. Bits of straw. Everybody was relearning everything. Everything was just basically getting started, and that led to piezoelectricity. Just had to know. Basically got it described, fleshed out, and understood better in between the wars, and now they use it in everything. Phonographs, sonar. Couldn't do anything in World War II without it. Very common inventor. Temperature stable crystals. Your lighters work by piezoelectric. Your Bic lighter. Another one of that is just a very, very long, so much information on piezoelectricity. Playing your guitars with the piezoelectricity. All your weapons have piezoelectricity. They want you to have it in you so that they can run you. Moving right along, we're going to be looking at how recently everything was by looking at some of that rock and roll music. Not really, but Alan Lomax and his father, best known for field recording, folk music in the early 1900s, all the way through the 40s, 50s, and 60s. They were going around the United States archiving folk music, and eventually that's where the song House of the Rising Sun came from. It's an old song, and they just eventually said, okay, try these chords, try that chords. Bob Dylan copied some chords from another guy, then the Animals copied the chords, and you know, it's basically just music that they heard somewhere in the deep south, maybe. They don't even know. But everybody that became famous was because they got it from somewhere. Made me think of Woody Guthrie and his, you know, back in the day, this machine kills fascists. He was anti-government. Our government was fascist. He wasn't protesting Italy. He wasn't protesting Russia. He was protesting the United States. This machine kills fascists. Ephesians 2, verse 10. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. Are you doing good works? You were created in Christ Jesus to do good works. I didn't ask you if you were saved by grace, because of course, if you're saved by grace. I'm asking you, have you been doing good works? Because the reason you were saved by grace, created in Christ Jesus, was to do good works that were prepared for you in advance. How much have you put off because you've been taught? It doesn't matter. And a good work, even though it profits little compared to your ultimate salvation, that sentence should read, this does good for you. It profits, not as much as spiritual, but your bodily exercise and keeping yourself, that's a good work. Keeping yourself what you eat pure. Because now you know about epigenetics. You already knew about eugenics. How can the sins from a father be passed on? Well, it won't be held against you, but if you can't, you can't be a Christian and say, well, I don't believe that alcoholism is inherited or anything else. Well, now you know it's not strictly inherited. But you can honor them by breaking that cycle. That's what this is all about. Let's see what I have pulled up. We are wrapping up here. To prepare beforehand. That verse, it only has two times in Romans 9:23. The people which he prepared for glory, and the good works that he prepared beforehand for you to do once you were saved. That is what this is all about. It comes from the word that it's from is before. He ahead of you, when you were before the foundations of the world, before you were in your mother's wombs, ahead, there were things that were prepared before you. And it's going to be like God's going to say, I gave you 5 talents. What did you do with them? And if somebody uses all of their talents, then they're going to get more well done, my good and faithful servant. And that is what this is always going to be about on this flat earth nation. And it is a flat earth nation. Mudflood was Armageddon. You know I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? I'm trying to prove I have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.